What do YouTube? 805 John here from Prison to Purpose. Today we're going to start off where we left off yesterday. Yesterday I was talking about my first experience with my first cellie on the main line. And where we left off was when we departed. When I walked out of that cell to go on that first mission that I got sent on. It was kind of putting me up on game about how it's going to be in the hole. Because he had just got out the hole and he had been down 9 years already. He had experience with that. This is going to be my first time going. So today's story about my first time in the hole. And it's an experience that really opened my eyes about how grimy the politics could be. So buckle up and let's get prepared. So I remember walking out of the cell that day. I'd already, because he told me straight up for what we were going to do, we're going to end up going to the hole. So before I walked out of that cell, I'd already bagged up all my stuff, had it ready right there on my bunk, so that way when the cops came to get my stuff, my cellie would just hand it over to them. It was already bagged up and ready to go. So it was morning yard. So I go out in my blues, not in my good clothes. That was another thing he told me. You're most likely going to get sprayed, you're going to get bombed, you're going to get your clothes all jacked up. Go in your state blues. Excuse me. So I did that. I go out in my state blues, my boots. I walk out and I go to where they told me to meet at. It was on the corner of the track on D Yard. And I wasn't sure exactly how many of us there were going to be. I just knew who the target was going to be. And I was told that the dude had an entourage. And again, I didn't ask questions about what this was even over. So that should have been a red flag to me that he has an entourage and they're giving me a heads up that they might jump, so we have some more people on standby who are going to get involved, basically to turn it into a mini riot. You understand what that means. So I go out and meet up on the middle of the track with the two dudes that I know I'm going on it with. It was a homie from Bologna Bakers. Again, I'm not going to say his name. He got out and he went back and he's doing a lot of time. I'm sure he's still active. I don't want to put him out there. But, if any of you guys are watching that were there, I used to call him Wills because of the way that he went out. And you guys will understand the nickname in the story. But that wasn't his moniker. And then the other homie was from Campo Locos in Porterville. So it was me and those two that I knew of for sure. That was going to be our squad. So we go out there and then the dude that has the building, the one that I think's calling shots for the whole yard, basically tells us that when education comes out, which is kind of like where we're at on the track, there's a door next to it, and that's where education would come out from. It was different than C Yard. I'll explain that when I get there. But they didn't come through work change. They came through a side door right there. And I believe it was going to be the first unlock. Around that time, education comes out, getting ready to go in for first unlock. So I'm like, alright, cool. They tell us go ahead, spin some laps, and then when it gets close to first unlock, meet back right here. So I'm walking around and I'm with my little squad, and I had a boy from Paso Robles. I'm not gonna say his name. I know he's out here doing good, but I'm sure he wouldn't want me to put him out there. We're walking laps, and he'd been down a while too. He had done 15, and I think he was already like 11 years in right there. He was getting close to the house, so he knew what was up. And he was kind of telling me, just like my cellie was trying to tell me, like, I don't think this is a good call. You should have asked him what this was about. You should have got a wheeler, like, to take with you. Like, I don't think this is a good idea for you to do it. It's not too late to back out. You might get a calentada, but you'll be good in the back over it. And me, like, I'm just trying to listen to who I think's calling shots. First of all, I put myself in the predicament to be there. Second of all, they asked me to do it, and I said yes. So I'm not gonna try to back out of it now, you know? If I say I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna do something. So, yeah, I'm just like, thank you for letting me know that, but it's already happening. I'm in too deep already. I'm gonna do it. So, sure enough, walk around the track, and it's about that time to meet back up. So I meet back up, and it's me and the two homies, and we're told this dude's gonna come out with his entourage, right? So sure enough, education opens up, dude comes out with his little entourage, and homie from Bologna Bakers serves him first. Bink! And when me and the homie from Campo go to jump in, he his entourage jumps in. So me and Campo start getting off on their entourage, but it was only one dude really. The rest of the entourage squared up like they were gonna do something, but it was only one dude who happened to be from my Sally's area. He was from Brole in Valle Imperia. So when that happens, that little standby crew, which I didn't even know who it was, they start to jump. So now we got it was 7 of us total from my side that went to the hole. So it was us 3 and then 4 more dudes jump. So homie from Colonia and the other 4 dudes are getting on the main dude that they were supposed to remove. And the funny thing is, they didn't even drop him. Like, that dude was putting them on them, but, like, nobody really fell. They're just chunking them 4 on 1. And then me and homie from Campo Locos were getting off on that dude that jumped in. I mean, we were getting them vicious. Like, I'm not going to take credit for it. Campo Locos had hands. As far as for me, like, my thing's cut up, but I'm not going to lie to you and tell you I have knockout power. I can just cut you up with my knuckles. But we were putting them on that dude, like, we were leaving that dude cut up. But that dude did not punk out. Like, I remember he finally dropped, and as far as I remember, you weren't supposed to hit a homie when he was on the ground. But at the same time, this is a removal, and I'm assuming it's for a good reason. But I didn't do first. I waited to see what homie from Campo was going to do. And he didn't start stomping him, but he got on top of him and started hitting him. So I was like, alright, screw it. Got down, started packing dude out. So sure enough, yard down, yard down. We're still going. The cops all run up. They start spraying us. We're not stopping because we're on top of that dude, but he kind of started trying to make his way up. So he wasn't trying to get down, and I was going to be damned if I was going to get down first. And these dudes are still scuffling. So then they end up shooting the bombs. And I honestly thought these bombs were like the pepper spray, but they weren't. They were like these smoke bombs. And if you inhale it, oh my god, dude, especially if you have asthma. And I have asthma. Like, I remember I inhaled it, and I could not breathe. I could not breathe. It sucked. It had my lungs burning. But, again, I wasn't going to get down. I waited until I seen everybody else getting down. So we're still getting busy. I mean, we're burning up from the pepper spray. We can't breathe from the smoke. It's basically a little mini riot. It's a 7-on-2. And, we're still getting off. Little by little, everybody starts getting down. And I looked over at Campo, and we were the last 2. That dude was subdued. He was already down. He wasn't a threat no more. So we ended up getting down. Tell me why. Everybody's already down already. The cops shoot another one of those freaking bombs. And homie from Colonia, Baker's is like right next to, because he's proned out. They make you prone out on your stomach, face down, put your hands on your back. So the bomb lands right by Colonia's face, and boom, it busts in his face and splits his eyebrow. Now all that smoke's in his face. Oh man, I felt bad for him. But so whatever, they zip tie us up and they leave us all right there just baking. And you gotta understand, it's the middle of the summer. I want to say this was like in July or August, the middle of the summer. It's like 120 degrees out there. We're all gassed out from fighting, burning up from that pepper spray, and they just leave us baking out there. They start recalling the yard. Everybody from one block, go back. Of course, they take their sweet ass time to make sure that they all go in. Excuse me. They take their sweet ass time to go in. Everybody from 2 block, go back. I mean, so they basically recalled the yard like that. Every block, little by little, they sent them back. I want to say we were out there for at least 2 hours just baking. And then they didn't even move us right away. By the time that they had the whole yard recalled, and we're the only ones out there just zip-tied baking or freaking in the freaking pepper spray, they still waited a little bit. And then they finally were like, alright, we're going to start taking you guys to the gym. So, first thing they do when you're going to go to the hole, you end up going to the gym. They start trying to ask you questions about the incident. You always got to say, not guilty, no comment. Nothing else needs to be said. And then they go get your property. They come, and then, they're going to check off, make sure that's all your property. And they do all this before they even let you get, like, a shower to take that pepper spray off. So, I mean, hours are going by while you're just baking with that. So, when they call us into the gym, they start taking us one by one. So the homie from Bologna Bakers, they ask him if he needs a wheelchair, and I don't know why he took it, because he didn't really get beat up, but I would always clown him for that, and that's why I called him Wills. They had him on a freaking wheelchair, and he was all split in his eyebrow. But again, it was from the bomb. Just later on in time, we got out the hole. I'd always clown him for that. Like, remember when we did that removal and you got beat up and you were the victim? Ese Wills. He used to get so butthurt for that, but it was just me clowning with him. That's not really how it went down. He didn't get beat up. He didn't beat that dude up either, but he didn't get beat up. So they wheel him off into the gym. We all end up going into the gym. They have the nurse look at all of us. They take pictures. They decide who's going to be the victims and who are the aggressors. Obviously, those 2 dudes were the victims, and the 7 of us were the aggressors. So we all end up going to the hole. And Ad-Seg and Ironwood was an A yard, which was a trip because A yard is all SNY. But I believe it was A5. 5 building is the hole. And at this time, I don't know if it's different, but A5 was the hole for Ironwood and the hole for Chuckawalla, which is the level 2 yard that's right next to Ironwood. So, yeah, we all end up in A5, and they put all of us on single cell status because they still don't know what's going on. To them, they're tripping out that Southsiders and Southsiders are going at it, doing a little mini riot. Obviously, they had the victims and the aggressors, right? But they still didn't know who to trust, so they single cell all of us. So the first thing I remembered when I got into my cell was how my cellie taught me how to spin line. He told me as soon as I get back there, I'm going to have to spin line. I'm going to have my lockup order. They're probably going to call me through the vent, through the door, whoever has it for the homies in my section. And they're going to ask me for my lockup order to make sure that I'm still good for whatever reason. Or for whatever reason, I'm back there. So that's what I start doing. I start tearing apart the boxers I got. And like I told you, in the hole, you only have your boxers and your shower junk glass. You don't have nothing else. And especially when you first get there, you have 0 property. So it's kind of hard to make a car when I'm going to get there. I didn't think about that at this time. So I'm sitting there taking forever to spin lines. And, you know, they finally call me through the vent. And they ask me, do you know you a homie? What are you back here for? You know what? They stop me when I'm trying to explain. Basically tell me, just write it on a wheelie and send it up with your lockup order. We're going to fish down to you, make a card, get to us, attach it, pull it up, and then we'll shoot you way back. I'm like, alright, cool. And that's where it came into play, where before I went, my Sally and the homie from Paso Robles were telling me that I should have had a wheelie back there already. And that's why I should have denied the holiday, but I didn't know any better. I'm a 19, 20-year-old kid, my first time just doing it. So I end up, you know, it took me a while to go ahead and spin that line. And now I got there, and I'm thinking, what the hell am I going to use for a car? A car is what you use for the weight to shoot your line out to fish. I didn't really have anything, so I'm sitting there, like, trying to find anything in that cell. There happened to be, like, a little box lunch. Obviously, the lunch wasn't there, but the cardboard for it. I'm trying to use that. They haven't fed us yet, or else I would have used a milk carton. So I'm sitting there trying to use that freaking, that cardboard. I'm not going nowhere. Tell me why the victim right next door to me, which was the guy that I was actually getting on, the one that me and Gumpel were jumping, he's next door to me and he sees that I'm having trouble shooting my line out. You know what? That dude, he was a righteous homie. He'd been down a long time. He was alive for 2 and he knew what was up. He held no ill feelings towards me. He knew I was just doing what I was told by who I thought was calling the shots. And he did tell me straight up that that was a bad call. We shouldn't have did that. But he gave me his word that he was going to vouch for me when we got out. Because this ended up being like a political power struggle. These dudes were all on the mesa and trying to take over and just power tripping. It was stuff that I should not have been involved in. But again, I didn't ask questions. They just see me as a pawn. And that's what they do to everybody in there. That's why you don't want to go. They're just going to use you as a pawn. So, he's cool enough. He's like, hey, I'm gonna throw my car to you. Just hook onto it, and we'll just send our paperwork up together. Our lockup orders up together. So he did me the favor. So he throws his car in. I connect to it. He gets my paperwork and the little wheel I sent. They throw their car down, and it's crazy. They're on the top tier, the dudes that have it, that want our paperwork. They have like this manila envelope that flies over the rail and comes down, and like literally they're able to fish like that. And comes down, he pulls their car in, attaches, they pull everything up, they get at me through the vent, tell me it's a touchdown, they got it, and they end up shooting everything back. And yeah, so come to find out that that was a bad call. I should not have been involved in that, and we most likely are going to have repercussions for what we did when we get back on the yard. So we're in the hole. They end up taking us out to yard, and the yard in Ironwood hole is like little dog cages. You only go out with you and your cellie. I mean, you're gonna go out with a group, people that are in your section, but you don't have any access to get to them because you're like in a dog kennel. It's like a bunch of dog kennels next to each other. So if you do have a cellie, it's you and your cellie in one kennel, your neighbors in the next, blah 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 blah, so forth, so forth. And all of us being on single cell status, we don't have any cellies. So we're all out there trying to figure out what's going on. We all realize that we're pretty much screwed. And we're back there for a while. I remember after the second week, they decided to give us our property. And at this time, they were letting us have our TV in the hole. And they had electrical outlets. Well, because the only thing I had at this time was a little wind-up radio. They give you a little wind-up radio when you get to the hole. That's like the only thing I had. And I just remember they brought our property, and the cop didn't really want to do all the paperwork of giving it to us, so he just told me, it was like, look, if I give you some of your hygiene and your TV, can you wait for the rest of the stuff? I was like, hell yeah, I want my damn TV. And the cool thing about my TV was I had installed speakers into it, and I had a CD player on there, and I so happened to have a CD that I left inside of the CD player, so I'm going to be able to bump music while I'm in the hole too. And you're not allowed to have CDs back there. Like if I would have had it in the case, they wouldn't have gave it to me. So I end up getting my TV, and now I'm just chilling, just bumping music. I'd watch TV here and there, but in Ironwood you don't have a lot of different channel options. It's basic cable, straight ghetto basic cable. You only got like NBC, ABC, Fox, simple stuff like that. There's only like 6 channels that you get, unless you get an antenna. And from what I remember in Ironwood, there wasn't really good channels you could get if you had an antenna. And you had to make one. They wouldn't let you buy them in the store, or in the packages right there. So, I'm just bumping all day. And the funny thing is, it changed my whole perspective of, that song, The Hole by X-Rated? When I was a younger dude on the street, I used to love that song. That was my song. But I got a totally different perspective of it when I was sitting in the hole listening to it. I really was able to feel it. Like, that verse where he says, real niggas got it bad if the A2B can't get a job, so you stuck in the cell watching TV. I used to think he said, got it bad if you're in too deep. I didn't know what A2B was. And then after being in prison on the mainland, I understood what A2B was. So when you get to prison, you're automatically A2B when you get out of orientation. That basically means you don't have a job, you don't go to school, you really don't got a good program coming. You could come out all day until night yard. You're not allowed to go to night yard, and you're not allowed to come out on the weekends or on holidays. And as soon as you get a ducat for a job or to go to school, you automatically become A1A, which means you could go out for night yard, you could come out on the weekend and on holidays. So they had a little joke, they call it A2B, A2 bump. But, that was just something I noticed listening to the hole. Well, I was in the hole, ironically. So yeah, we're back there for a couple months. I remember committee came and saw us. They're still trying to figure out what happened. We weren't talking. They postponed it. And then we're back there for about 3 months. When they finally kicked us out, they gave us our punishment. We didn't end up getting a DA referral. They did refer it to the DA, but the DA never picked it up. We got our punishment, and it ended up being the 90 days that we were back there. So we ended up getting kicked out, and I didn't really notice this at the time. When the day that they kicked us out, they tell us that we're going to C yard. This happened on D yard. C and D are the only GP yards in Ironwood at this time. A and B are S and Y. So they're kicking us out to C yard. I don't really know what to expect. And it's me and the homie from Colonia and the homie Gampo, the two dudes that, excuse me, burp's bad right now. I'm sorry. So the two dudes that I was originally going on the mission with, not the other four dudes that were the backup squad. But I'm not paying attention to this. Like, I didn't really notice that it was only us three getting kicked out to the yard. So they end up giving us our property. We hit work exchange. They give us our blues. We dress out, and I want to say it's like around 1 o'clock. It's like around 1 o'clock. So when we come out of work exchange, we're gonna go to C1, basically to the orientation building. When you get out of the hole, you automatically go to orientation again. You basically start over, and then you get sent to wherever you're going. So we're literally on the whole other side of the yard from where C1 is. It felt like the longest walk in the world. As soon as we pop out of work exchange and we have our bags, homie from Colonia tells me straight up, he was like, you do realize where the other guys went, right? I'm like, what do you mean? He was like, you notice it's only us three? And that's when it hit me. I was like, oh crap, what happened to everybody? He's like, they all locked it up. That was a bad call. We probably got something coming. There's a good chance we're going to get rushed or blasted right now. And I'm like, oh, great. Now I'm starting to get nervous. Like, this is going to suck. And the whole yard's out. So I'm talking about there's hundreds of people out here right now. And they're all looking at us. And we're just like deer, just like, ugh. So he starts coming up with the game plan. We're still walking. He's basically like, look, if they start rushing us, just us three get back to back and not fall. We'll try to hold each other up. That's the best we can do. And I agree to it. Gampo agrees to it. And we're just walking, looking at everybody, just wondering who's going to be the one to rush us. So we end up getting to C1. The porters ask us, they could see our lockup order, tell us what cell we're going to. We end up going in there. So, we get into our cell. They actually let me cell up with Gampo, and Bologna had his own cell. He was right next door to us, though. And, we start setting up, trying to get comfortable, hook up our TVs and stuff, because we had all of our property at this point. It was a trip. The porter comes back to our door, and he was like, hey, senores want to talk to you when you get out. So come out the next time the door cracks, come out for unlock. Like, oh, crap. Because orientation at this time, they were getting their own little day room. Because you got to remember, we're not classified again. We're back to unclassified, so we're on orientation. But it was, I don't know, you got to understand. These, as Dubs would say, legends have juice like that. They could basically come out whenever they want. And so happened that two of the legends had just got, kicked down. One came from Pelican Bay, and the other one came from Kern Valley, I believe. I could be wrong. They might have both came from the Bay, but we had two of them in that building, and they wanted to speak to us about what happened. And me and Gampo were like, damn, we're screwed. They're going to tell us what we got coming, and we're going to get fucked off. I'm not going to lie, I was super nervous, but what could I do? I'm at the beginning of my term. I'm doing 9 with 85. I got like 7 years to do. I'm not going to go run to the cops. Especially at this age where I'm thinking I'm still super churned up and this is my life. I'm dedicated to it. I'm not going to go tell the cops like, oh, I can't be here. They're going to kill me. I just figured whatever. I'll take whatever I got coming and then try to clean it up later. That's the stupid mentality I had at this time. I just wanted to be a part of that so bad. To this day, I'll never understand why. So, whatever, the unlock ends up happening. We come out, and they have a sit down at the table with them. They ask us what happened, and just told them straight up exactly what happened. The dude that had our building asked us to go on this hale, told us what was going to happen, and we did it. They sent us on it, and he told us straight up that those dudes we're going to have something coming. The dudes that sent us on it, because they were a part of that power struggle on DR, and basically told us that because they were there, nothing's going to happen to us. Just to learn from this, next time ask questions, make sure you're in the right. Basically said, you guys didn't know any better. You guys are going to be okay, you're cleared. Because we were honest with them. And in reality, it should have been that way. We didn't know any better. We were doing what we were told by who we thought thought we're calling shots. We didn't know there was a power struggle going on because we weren't deep in the politics like that to be knowing that stuff. But again, it could have went a totally different way. It's a dog eat dog world in there, and anybody will throw somebody else under the bus. They don't care if you're how little you are, how not involved you are. If they could throw you under the bus to save themselves, they will. So we actually got really lucky. It worked out in our favor. And I think another thing that they took into consideration was the 4 other dudes, Wyness and Y, instead of coming out to the yard. They seen the 3 youngest dudes kept it solid, and they gave us a pass. It all ended up being good. So 2 weeks pass, classification sees us, throws us back A2B again, and then we get kicked out to different buildings. I ended up in C4, and maybe that'll be tomorrow's story. You guys let me know in the comments if you want to hear about how the rest of my term in Ironwood ended out when I landed in C4. I got a lot of trippy things that I could talk about from that experience. That was where I did a majority of my time. I was right there for like almost 5 years in C4. I stayed in the same cell then. Not the entire time. I landed in 119 when I got kicked out from orientation in C1 after I got out the hole. I was in 119 for about a year. And you know what? I think that'll be a good story. The worst cellie I ever had. That was miserable living with that dude for a year. And that's a story you guys might want to hear. How bad it could be living with somebody that you don't get along with. And from there, I ended up moving up to 205 or 206. I believe it was 205. And I stayed in I'm tripping. I'm thinking of reception still. It was 212. I remember because I didn't like the number 12 very much. But the guy that was pulling me into the cell with him, he was a really, really good older homie. Taught me a lot of good things, and that's why I stayed celled up with for about 4 years. And yeah, that was a pretty cool experience. Looking back at it, I made the best I could out of it while I was right there in that cell. And again, times weren't always great, but I made the best of the experience in there. And I got a lot of wild things I could tell you guys about that stay right there on C yard. That's where I did the rest of my time on the 3 yard before I dropped points at the tail end of my term, and I ended up going to CMC West. And that was in 2017. So it was like right before they were doing all those 50-50 yards and stuff. I got out and came back and everything was way different. But, you guys let me know if you want to hear about more of my Ironwood experience, how it was on C yard, some of the things I saw there, how it was like to be on the yard with the legends. You want to hear the experience with the worst cellie ever and how I got stuck with him for a whole year. Because that's going to be another one that I could explain, like how these dope fiend older homies are. That's kind of how I got stuck with that dude. You got these dudes that are nobody politically. They're just older dudes that have a lot of time. All tatted up, bald as big old broad shot, straight dope fiends. And they find these youngsters that think that they try to portray themselves as being somebody. And they find these youngsters that'll leave it all up. And when they do that, they start trying to get them high. And it always has to be a youngster that's on their first term, so their family's taking care of them and they got money. And I just seen, it really turned me off to them. I would see it happen time and time again. They would ruin one kid's life. He would either get whacked when his family decided they weren't going to keep giving him all that money because he's strung out, or they would just cut him off, and then, they're on to the next one, kick him out, and go find another youngster to go milk for and get strung out. It's a dog-eat-dog world in there, and I don't care if you go in there for 6 months or if you go in there for 10 years. If you get out, you're lucky to get out, because nobody's promised to go home there. It is a dog-eat-dog world, and they will seek you to the wolves to save their own ass. Nobody cares about you. There is no loyalty. You went in there alone, you're getting out of there alone. So, I really hope that somebody was able to get something out of this. Again, I'm not trying to glorify my past. I just want to give you guys my experiences and let you know the real and the raw about it. And I really hope that you guys can learn from my mistakes and you don't make the same ones. Because I regret everything I did that led me up going into wasting my life in there. I love my life now. but I could have had this life so much earlier. But no, I wasted it doing dumb crap and trying to be loyal to something that held no value. So again, it's gonna be the end of the video. Let me know in the comments what you guys want to hear about again. Please like, subscribe, comment. Excuse me. And if you know anybody that you feel could get something out of this, please share the video with them. Hit that arrow. Until next time, I'll see you guys again. 805 John from Prison to Purpose. Peace.